Good morning, everyone, and we want to welcome back the witness, Ms. Bernadita Cabrera Palacios, the Director of Financial Services, Department of Finance, and her counsel, Mr. Matt Gregory. We thank you for coming back. I hope the long weekend has you guys recharged and refreshed. I would like to remind the witness that you're still under oath, and also remind everybody here in the chamber that please put your cell phones on silent mode. And if there are no objections from the members, I would like to, at this part of the hearing, ask the vice chair to be presiding over this, as I will be asking questions at this time. Are there any objections from the members? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if there's no objections from the members or Ms. Palacios and Council Gregory, if the chair is allowed to ask questions from her current seat, or would you like for her to go down to the body? Okay, we're good? Thank you, members. So without any objections, I recognize the chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I wanted to refresh your memory a little bit from our proceedings last Friday. Do you recall me asking you that if federal funds are used to pay for travel, that local funds cannot be used to augment or supplement for additional airfare, stipend, and car rental or other expenses? Do you recall saying, no, you can't do that?
Yes.
Thank you. Is it a travel policy that if a federal grants were used to pay for airfare, per diem, car rental, that the local funds, there would still be a TA, a government TA, but it would reflect zero cost. Is that correct, according to policy?
Come again?
If federal funds were used to pay for airfare, per diem, car rental for any public official, then a CNMI government TA would still have to be submitted reflecting zero cost. Is that correct?
It all depends on the travel, coming back or additional funds is needed. Then the TA would have an additional figure.
Thank you. In what situation would local funds require additional expenses to supplement a travel that is already paid for by federal grants? Can you think of a situation?
For some instance, maybe an additional day or certain, like an act of God or something that the CNMI would cover for that additional day or so.
Very well, thank you. What is the process for travel within the CNMI? What documents are needed or required?
It's the same thing as going off beyond Guam.
Okay, so basically there's no difference, right,
No.
between mainland and travel within the CNMI. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any travel policies that allow for the children of a public official to be to travel on government-funded trips? Is there any policy?
I think the policy is only showing the First Lady, and on the new policy, it's only the employee and this First Lady or the Second Lady or the House,
So it doesn't
But
cover
not
children,
family.
right?
No.
What about immediate family members, like siblings?
No.
Thank you. Um, According to travel policies, is Pagan considered travel within the CNMI?
Yes.
in accordance with the policies, do you know of any TA for the governor um, during his multiple trips to Pagan?
I'm not sure on that one.
You've never seen it?
Never seen one.
So you're not aware of any TA? What is required under the travel policy? You've never seen a TA? You've never seen an itinerary? You've never seen a manifest, passenger manifest? Is that correct?
To Pagan?
Yes, ma'am.
There's no flights to Pagan.
But even with boat, right? The governor can um, travel by boat, let's say to Rhoda or Tinian, and a TA would be initiated. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you've never seen one for Pagan?
For Pagan, I've never seen one, but yes, can be on a boat.
It can be on a boat, right?
Yes.
But there's no TA that you've ever seen. According to the policies, a TA is required, right? If it's official business.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I will yield to other members if they have any clarifying questions with respect to the questions that was just posed to the witness.
Representative Tina Saban, go
Thank
ahead.
you. And good morning to you, Ms. Palacios
Good
and
morning.
council. Welcome back. I just wanted to clarify the first question that the chair asked. So in the event that the federal government is fully funding a government official's travel, a CNMI government official's travel, there would still have to be a TA, right? Even if there was no act of God, no additional stay that comes up suddenly, like they would still have to get a travel authorization,
Yes.
even for federally funded travel.
Yes.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Tina. Are there any other questions from the other members? If not, we can move on. I'd now like to recognize Representative Richard Nazama.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and good morning,
Good morning.
Mrs. Palacios and Mr. Gregory, Matt Gregory. My first question is, Ms. Palacios, in your professional opinion, as a Director of Finance and Accounting, and with more than 30 years of experience at the Department of Finance, is it fair to say that you rely on the attestations of government officials that information is true and correct?
Yes.
So if the governor signs off on a travel authorization declaring that information is accurate and complete to the best of his knowledge, that's enough for finance, correct?
Yes.
If the governor signs the travel is in the best interest of the government, that's enough for finance too, correct?
Yes.
If the governor declares that an expenditure is for a public purpose and meets the public purpose test in accordance with the law, that's also enough for finance, correct?
Yes.
And the responsibility for telling the truth falls on the government officials who is traveling and claiming reimbursement, correct?
Come again?
And the responsibility of telling the truth falls on the government official who is traveling and claiming reimbursement. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lazama. At this time, I'd like to recognize Representative Tina Sablon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I request a brief recess, please?
Short recess. Thank you. We are back from our short recess, and at this time, Representative Tina Saplan still has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have distributed to the members and the witness a copy of Travel Authorization 331441, and this is entered as Exhibit 13. So Ms. Palacios, how does finance know when a public official is making a personal stop during government paid travel?
Sorry. It's usually mentioned on the TA that from this day to this day, the employee would be on a personal leave.
Okay, and if we could go on to the next page, Council, to get to the actual TA, travel authorization. There we go. And just for the record, this TA indicates Ralph DeLeon Guerrero Torres traveling with +1. He and his wife took a trip to Montana with a stop in Portland, Oregon, and a stop in Boise, Idaho on or about June 23rd, 2017 through July 2nd, 2017. Ms. Palacios, do you see anywhere on this document, this travel authorization dated June 19, 2017, any indication that the governor and first lady plan to make a personal stop?
Yes,
And where do you see that? Could you point that out to us?
it's to Boise on the travel voucher.
So this is on the travel voucher that was
Yes.
completed after they returned
Yes.
in May.
Yes.
Okay. And whose writing is that? Do you know?
Vicky Maritita.
Vicky Marti. And who is she?
She's one of our staff at travel.
Okay. So how would she have known that this stop in Boise was for a personal stop?
It's not on the original TA.
Mm-hmm.
So he was not going to Idaho, approved to go to Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
So they knock off the per diem on the,
Oh, so he was not originally approved, but when he returned and she saw that he had stopped in Boise.
they removed that calculation of that per diem.
Got it. Okay. And the purpose of this trip, if we could go back to the Travel Authorization Council. The purpose of this trip was to meet with officials of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife on the Marianas Trench Marine National Monument in Portland, Oregon, and to attend the 2017 Western Governors Association in Whitefish, Montana. And then there's a note there, travel will be performed in the best interest of the CNMI. Do you see that, Ms. Palacios?
Yes.
Okay, and if we could scroll down further, Council, to estimated cost. So the total cost of airfare for the Governor and First Lady Diane Torres was $23,302 or $11,651 each. The airline itinerary and the boarding passes attached indicate they both traveled on first or business class airfare. Ms. Palacios, do you agree that the government paid for first class or business class airfare for this trip?
Yes.
Okay, and is there a trip report for
No.
this trip?
No.
Are you aware of any public purpose for the First Lady's travel in this case?
Come again?
Are you aware of any public purpose for the First Lady's travel in this case?
The TA is saying Ralph Torres +1.
Yes. But do you know of any public purpose related to the First Lady participating in this trip? If you know.
No.
No, okay. There is an invitation that's attached to the Western Governors Association meeting and a confirmation page for Governor Torres's registration. Do you see those documents?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you see any supporting documents for a meeting with U.S. Fish and Wildlife officials in Oregon?
No,
No. And according to the travel voucher, which is the first page of this document, the governor and the first lady spent about 2 days in Oregon, correct? From June 23rd to June 25th, 2017.
yes, yes,
Okay. But we don't actually know if there was a meeting with U.S. Fish and Wildlife or any official government business conducted during this trip because there is no trip report, correct?
yes,
Okay. Now, the governor also received a stipend in this case, $199 a day for 5 days, right? Am I reading that right?
yes,
And the total cost to the government for this trip alone was $24,297, inclusive of stipend and airfare for the two of them, correct?
yes.
Okay, now would you help us understand this part more clearly? Why would a government official opt for a stipend instead of per diem?
That's their choice.
It's up to
I
them.
mean, it's their choice what to get, if it's a per diem or a stipend. So
Okay.
if you put stipend, then we'll give you stipend. If you didn't put anything and you put CNMI rate, then we'll give you the actual per diem.
Okay, so it's up to the requesting traveler
Yes,
to decide whether they will take a stipend or a per diem.
yes.
Okay, now stipend could be less than per diem, right?
It is less than per diem.
It is less than per diem. And what does a stipend cover?
The same thing as per diem,
Which is what?
which is your lodging and your room and board.
Lodging, room and board, meals, everything.
Yes.
Okay. If an official gets a stipend while on government travel, could that official be later reimbursed for itemized expenditures?
If he's hosting other, I mean, yes, he can get reimbursed.
He or she can get reimbursed for more in itemized expenditures
Yes.
on top of the stipend that they get.
It all depends on, because usually you get reimbursed for an additional requesting reimbursement
Mhm.
if you're hosting people or otherwise meeting with,
Okay.
you know,
Or what about for lodging?
no.
No? So if the governor received a stipend, that should have been enough to cover lodging and meals for that entire trip. Okay.
Should be.
Yeah. So a stipend generally covers meals then, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And a per diem also generally covers meals. You said they cover the same things.
Room and board for the per diem.
And room and board. Okay. And do all government employees then get some kind of funding to cover their meals while they're on travel?
Yes.
Okay. Whether they receive stipends or per diem.
Yes.
Okay. Could CNMI government employees get reimbursed for hosting other CNMI government employees while they're on travel?
It all depends on, yes,
They can.
I would say.
Okay. I'd like to draw your attention now to the next exhibit, which is a request for reimbursement that the governor submitted on August 29, 2017. Council, if you could please pull that up. This is a request for reimbursement submitted by the governor to then Secretary Larissa Larson, approximately 2 months after this trip that we have been discussing with TA 331441. So, Council.
Excuse me, Representative Sawan, is
Sure.
that Exhibit 14?
Yes, this is
Okay.
entered, thank you. This is
Thank you.
entered as Exhibit 14. So, Council, if you could scroll down, please, to the justification and declaration part. Ms. Palacios, so this is an example of the kind of request for reimbursement and the kind of attestation that you would typically see, right? And there's this declaration: I declare that the above information is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, and that this expenditure is for a public purpose and therefore meets the public purpose test in accordance with Public Law 1184 as amended by Public Law 12.2. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. And for the record, for the members' information, the statutory definition, this is the statutory definition of public purpose, and it's codified at Title I, Section 121 of the Commonwealth Code. So Ms. Palacios, the request for reimbursement includes a receipt for hosting a party of 6 on the evening of June 27th, 2017 at the Stillwater Restaurant in Whitefish, Montana. The receipt includes orders of king crab, if we could please pull up the receipt attached to this. King crab, aged ribeye, salmon, oysters, alcohol. Do you see that, Ms. Palacios? This would be the receipt on the left. For a total of $261.50.
Yes.
Okay, if you could scroll a little further down, Council. There's a note, or there should be a note. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. It would be on the first page. Okay, so according to the memo, the people being hosted were PSD on protection. Scroll up a little further. There we go, the detail. Hosting of PSD on protection at the Stillwater on June 27th, 2017. PSD stands for Personal Security Detail, correct? Ms. Palacios?
Yes.
Yes. And do you see the names of any PSD officers on this request?
No.
Do you see the names of any of the individuals that were hosted on this night?
No.
And assuming that all 6 guests were PSDs on official government travel, they each would have had their own stipends or per diems, correct?
Yes.
So all of the government employees on this trip, including the governor, would have received some kind of compensation from the government for their meals, right?
Yes.
And the governor was reimbursed by the government on top of that for hosting them for meals. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you said last week that the First Lady doesn't typically get a stipend or per diem of her own while she's traveling with the governor,
Yes.
right? And why is that?
I don't. It's been a practice like that.
It's been a practice that she would not get a stipend or per diem.
Yes.
Is it because she's not a government employee?
Maybe.
Okay. But may the governor reimburse himself for her meals and her other expenses while she's traveling with him?
I don't know.
You don't know. Have you ever seen that?
No. I'm not sure, but I don't know if she can get
Okay. Who would know that?
himself.
The governor would know that? Okay. Would the Secretary of Finance also be able to answer that?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay. So even if there's no actual public purpose, if for the First Lady's travel, is there a possibility that the governor may have still reimbursed himself for the First Lady's meals and other travel expenses while she was traveling with him?
I wouldn't know that.
Okay. According to your reading of these documents, did the governor receive any stipend during his 2-day personal stop in Boise? This is going back to TA 331441.
don't think so. Can you repeat again?
Sure. According to your reading of these documents, did the governor receive any stipend during his 2-day personal stop with his wife in Boise?
Based on the itinerary calculation on the back,
Mhm.
on the, I think, they have, they put there that it's authorized by Secretary of Finance,
I think that's a reference to
the Boise.
that's the next TA. There's 2 TAs that include a personal stop. We could take a quick recess, please.
Sure, recess. Thank you. Welcome back. We are back from our short recess, and at this time, Representative Sablan still has the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Ms. Palacios, just to wrap up on this TA, the question was, based on the documents before you, did the governor receive any stipend during his 2-day personal stop in Boise?
What is the T number in that?
The 331441.
No,
No, he didn't. And how do we know that?
on the voucher itself, we knocked off the personal travel.
Okay, and Council, could you just highlight that part where it says no, where it says personal stop? And that was what you said Ms. Vicky Maratita
Yes.
had written in, right? And if we could scroll down a little further, so we see Governor Ralph de Leon Guerrero Torres was the traveler and the department head. And then to the right, we see total per diem earned. It's $995. That was actually the stipend, right?
Yes.
And we know that because the travel authorization, could we go to the next page? Keep going. Okay. The travel authorization provides for $199 for 5 days for a total of $995, right?
Yes.
But how do we know which 5 days were authorized in this trip?
It's from the day he left
Mhm.
to the day he returned, minus the one in Boise.
Okay, thank you. Now, there were many stops in Boise, Idaho, on many other trips that the governor took. So we'll just take a look at one more. Council, if you could please place TA number 334518 on the monitor. And Mr. Nicholas, if you could please pass out that TA for our witness and the members. We could take a short recess, please.
Short recess. Thank you. We are now back from recess, and Representative Tina Salon still has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so we are now looking at travel authorization number 334518, entered as Exhibit 15. So, Ms. Palacios and colleagues, according to this TA, on or about October 7th, 2017 through October 28, 2017, Governor Torres traveled to Washington, D.C., Seattle, and Boise, Idaho. Total airfare costing the government $3,243. And according to the boarding passes and itinerary, the governor traveled first class and business class. Do you see that, Ms. Palacios? $3,423 for airfare. So we could just stay on that part.
Yes.
Okay. And the purpose of this travel, if we could please scroll up, Council, according to the TA, was to meet with several congressional officials and DoD officials, Department of Defense officials, on CW issues, and to meet with Mr. Gary Kuwabara, who we heard about last time, an official with the Office of Economic Adjustment, on military officials. And again, that note, travel will be performed in the best interest of the CNMI. Do you see that, Ms. Palacios?
Yes.
Now, according to the travel voucher, we could please scroll up to the travel voucher. Governor Torres arrived in Washington, D.C. late at night on October 8th and left in the morning on October 11th. Correct?
Yes.
Then he went to Seattle and stayed for approximately 2 days from October 11th through October 13th. Correct?
Yes.
And then he went to Boise and stayed for nearly 11 days, arriving in the evening on October 13 and leaving on the morning of October 24th. Correct?
Yes.
And then he flew back to Saipan via Narita, Japan, and stayed in Japan for a couple of days from October 25th through the 28th, returning to Saipan on the 28th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is this your signature on the TA? Scroll down, please.
No.
Whose is it?
Larissa.
Larissa Larson, the Secretary
Yes.
of Finance. And is there a particular reason why you did not sign this TA?
Maybe I was not in the office. I don't.
Okay. Okay. And what is striking to me about this TA is the amount of per diem that the governor received. If we could please go to the, I guess it's there. Total per diem earned is $3,391.50, according to the travel voucher. But Ms. Palacios, there are different per diem calculations attached to this TA. And would you please just help us better understand this? So the travel voucher that was prepared prior to the trip, we could go to the travel voucher, please. Or, I'm sorry, the travel authorization. Indicates a per diem of $4,431. It's actually more than the cost of airfare.
$4,391.
$4,391.51. And then there are multiple per diem calculations that are attached to that. Do you see that? It's further down in the document.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So there is, for example, on the first page of the per diem calculation, for the a 16-day stop in Boise, Idaho, there was $3,200 per diem calculated, and then it's crossed out with a question mark. Do you know who did that?
No.
Okay. Do you know why it's crossed out with a question mark?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, in any case, then there's another per diem calculation after that on the next page, I guess 2 pages after that. Okay, thank you. So now we can read it. So the next page has the 3,200, sorry, the page after that, Council. 3,200, it's still crossed out, but there's a note that says, okay, as per SOF. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you know who wrote that?
One of the travel employee?
One of your staff?
Yes.
Okay, and SOF stands for?
Secretary of Finance.
Secretary of Finance. And so what exactly does that note mean?
It was added to the total per diem calculation based on the itinerary.
Okay, so the Secretary of Finance then approved that per diem for that length of stay in Idaho.
Yes.
Okay, and then there's another page of per diem calculations and more adjustments that are made. So for example, instead of this initial 16-day stay, it's actually a 10-day stay in Boise where he's authorized to receive $2,150 in per diem from October 13th to the 24th. Are we following that correctly?
I think this one is based on. That amount is on after the travel and then the voucher itself. So they corrected the voucher and they put that amount in.
Okay, so what he actually received in total was that amount, the $2,150 for 10 days in Boise, right? Plus the other per diem for the other stops for a total of $3,391.
Yes.
And 50 cents.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Now, do you know, Ms. Palacios, which congressional and Department of Defense officials Governor Torres met with?
No.
And there are no names in this document, correct?
Yes.
Do you know where he met with which officials?
No, the TA itself won't mention it.
Okay, and do we know from the documents, any of the documents, who he met in Washington for 2 days?
No.
Do we know who he met in Seattle for 2 days?
No.
Do we know who he met in Idaho for 10 days?
No.
Do we know who he met in Japan for 2 days? And there's no trip report, correct?
No.
And no other supporting documents?
Yes.
Yes, there
No.
are no other supporting.
No others.
No other supporting documents. Thank you very much, Ms. Palacios. I yield at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Solon. At this time, I would like to recognize Representative Donald Miglonia.
Thank you, Chair. And good morning again, Mrs. Palacios, and to your council. Good morning. The question I have is based on general reimbursement procedures. And I just wanted to ask, are you familiar with Title I, Section 121 of the Commonwealth Code regarding the definition of public purpose in our law?
Repeat again.
Are you familiar with Title I, Section 121 of the Commonwealth Code? This particularly is in relation to public purpose and what that entails.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
What about Title 70 of the Administrative Code regarding the expenditures of public funds?
Yes.
You are familiar with that?
Yes.
And so, can you please explain the process that finance follows for receiving and processing reimbursements for public officials?
If you submit a request for reimbursement, you're justifying what you're getting reimbursed for. No, we will process the reimbursement based on your request.
No. What would be your role in processing these reimbursements?
Well, reading the justification and certifying for availability of funds.
What about the process for that finance follows for processing official representation expenses?
When you submit it for reimbursement, we'll take whatever you're requesting for based on the receipt that you make sure the receipt is attached and paid on how it was paid. Then we will process the reimbursement back to you.
Okay, and so what would be your role in processing those official representation expenditures?
Certification of funds?
So you don't approve or disapprove these expenses? You just certify that the funds are there?
Yes.
And who approves or disapproves these reimbursement requests?
We will disapprove if you don't have money.
Well, the money's there, but the items are not justified. Who would disapprove? Would it be you or someone else?
Usually we will refer it to secretary and discuss the matter. And
So ultimately, the Secretary of Finance would make
Yeah.
that decision.
yes.
All right. Thank you for that, Madam Chair. You.
Thank you, Representative Magnolia. I have one clarifying question with respect to your role in processing reimbursements. Is part of your role to ensure that not only there's funds available, but the right account number is being charged? For example, if a public official is making a reimbursement, say under requesting reimbursement for official representation, and they're using a sub-account, let's say for fuel, would it be your role to correct that?
Yes.
Thank you. That was it. At this time, I will recognize Representative Vicente Camacho.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Mrs. Palacios and Council. My question is going to be in reference to reimbursements for personal items. Finance regulations found in Title 70 of the Administrative Code provide that all official representation expenditures and other governmental expenses must be for a public purpose. According to Title 70, Section 70-20.1, 101B, examples of unallowable expenditures include personal items other than those that meet the definition of public purpose, and the definition of public purpose is provided in Title 1 CMC Section 121 and mirrored in the regulations at Title 70 Section 70-20.1 0101S. My first question is personal food or clothing an allowable expenditure?
Again?
Is personal food or clothing an allowable expenditure?
What do you mean by food?
Just food that we consume, food that you buy,
No, you're not authorized.
personal. In other words, I
Yes.
guess you don't get per
Yeah.
diem or anything for this, no? What if I walk into a restaurant and I see someone I know celebrating a birthday and I decide to buy them lunch? Can I get reimbursed for that?
You're justifying you're entertaining somebody. I don't know who.
Okay. What if I am attending a private social gathering and I want to bring some drinks? For example, I want to bring a bottle of whiskey for the party. Can I get reimbursed for that?
No.
Okay. Is hunting gear an allowable expense?
Cannot hunt deer here.
Okay. Can I buy a rifle to go hunting with?
Huh?
Can I buy a rifle to go hunting with?
You can't hunt deer here.
Okay. What about rifle cases?
It all depends on how you justify it.
Okay. So what about camping gear?
How are you justifying?
Okay. Can I buy a personal camping stove and get reimbursed for that?
It all depends on your justification.
Okay. How about vehicle expenses?
Like what?
Let's say, is a car battery for my personal vehicle an allowable expenditure?
How would I know what car you're referring it to?
Okay. What if it's a car battery for my personal vehicle and I sell or transfer to someone else that same day? Can I get reimbursed for that car battery?
How would I know?
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Chair. Are you?
Thank you, Representative Camacho. Are there any members who would like to ask clarifying questions of the witness? I recognize Representative Ed Probst.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Palacios and Council for joining us once again today. I hope you had a restful weekend. I just want to ask some clarifying questions for the questions that Representative Camacho asked earlier. So let's say, for example, I'm not driving a government car. Okay, I have a personal vehicle. I drive to and from work. Okay. I didn't lease a car. That's just a personal choice. But let's say, for example, my personal car, I decide that I need a new car battery. And it's my own personal vehicle. I own it. My name's on it, registration and everything. Pay for insurance, everything. So I realize that my battery needs to be changed. And I go to, I don't know, let's say Napa. And I'm like, I need a new battery. Okay, $100. All right, thank you. And I get the battery and I'm driving my personal vehicle once again. Then that day or later that day or even the next day, I decide, you know what, I want to get reimbursed for this, for my personal vehicle. And I submit it to finance and I put in my personal license plate and registration and say, I got a new battery. I'd like a new battery for my car. What do you think is appropriate? Would this be an appropriate justified expense?
We're not reimbursing anything for your personal.
Personal vehicles. Okay. Thank you. And I wanted that clarified. And with regard to camping gear, it's true we can't hunt deer here. But let's say I go to the US. I'm an avid hunter, and I decide to go hunting and camping with some friends. And I go on a personal trip for this hunting expedition. And then I buy certain things. I buy some rifle cases. I decide to buy a stove, a camping stove, top of the line one, and then I buy some food items with that while I'm there to heat up and eat while I'm going camping. And this is a personal hunting trip. Do you think I'd be able to justify? Would I be able to get reimbursed for that personal hunting trip?
No.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted clarification on that, and thank you. Yes, please. I yield.
Recognize Representative Sablan.
Thank you. And just to further clarify your responses to those questions, Ms. Palacios, you asked, how would you know, right?
Yes.
And then this goes back to what you were saying earlier, that finance really relies on the information that is submitted by the government official requesting reimbursement, right?
Yes.
And so if a government official submits a receipt for camping gear or hunting rifle cases or whatever it might be, finance would rely on the truthfulness and the accuracy of the government officials' documents that they submit, right?
Yes.
And the justification, if they declare that it's public purpose and it meets the public purpose test, you said earlier that's enough for finance to accept as public purpose justification.
Yes.
Correct? Okay, thank you. I yield.
I just have one clarifying question. So ultimately, it is the government official requesting reimbursement. The responsibility falls on that person
Yes.
to justify whether it's public purpose or not. It's not you, right?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to recognize Representative Ed Probst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a few questions. Council or Mr. Nicholas, would you mind pulling out Title 70, Section 70-20.1-010? 1. And while we're waiting for that to be pulled up, Ms.
Would you like-
Palacios, do you have a copy of this? It's probably hard to see on the screen from there. Maybe if we can enlarge it, if she can see better. Short recess, please.
Short recess. Good morning. We're back from our short recess. I'd like to remind the witness that you're still under oath, and at this time, Representative Ed Probe still has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Council, for putting that up. I stand corrected. It's Title 70, Section 70-20.1-010, letter L. I thought it was a 1. My apologies. If I can read it, this section, as seen up on the screen, defines official representation as expenditures authorized by an appropriation act to be incurred by the authorized government official for entertainment of off-island government guests or for other expenses to promote goodwill for the public interest, and which are permitted pursuant to finance regulations for the control of public funds. Finance regulations found at Title 70, Section 70-20.1-101 also require complete documentation for official representation expenses. As you can see, if you go to letter A of this section, according to these finance regulations, letter A, the documents must include, at a bare minimum, letter A, the names and positions of persons entertained.
Sorry, just a
Is it
point of
further
order.
up?
It's actually in 70, sorry, Madam Chair, if I may be recognized.
Yes.
It's actually at Section 70, Council dash 20.1-101, the requirements for complete documentation.
Look for 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. There.
There we go.
Yeah, right there. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Right. Okay, so number 1, these documents must include at a bare minimum, number 1, the names and positions of persons entertained. It says right there, number 1. And number 2, nature and purpose of the expense and its direct relationship to CNMI government business. And number 3, a description of matters discussed. And number 4, original receipts and supporting documents. Ms. Palacios, so based on these regulations that we just mentioned and that appear on the screen, may a government official be reimbursed for official representation if the names and positions of persons entertained are not provided as stated in number 1?
In some cases, I think, I'm not sure whether I did some reimbursement for those.
Okay. But based on these regs, based on this, what is stated here, these documents must include these. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So with that said, if they're not provided, then under these regulations, if you do not have the name and position of persons entertained, then it should not be accepted or reimbursed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that also goes for number 2. If you don't have the nature and purpose of the expense and its direct relationship to CNMI government businesses, if this is not provided, right? This should also be included. Is that correct?
Yes.
As well as the description of matters discussed. Is that correct?
Yes.
And of course, which is always good and important and required, the original receipts and supporting documents as stated in number 4. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to get that clarified. At this point, can we pull up Exhibit 16, a list of credit cards, please? You have that on file? Yes, that is correct. We'll go to Elmo. And can you make sure Ms. Palacios has a copy of that as well?
Short recess.
Thank you.
Selena?
We are back from our short break, and this time Representative Ed Probst still has the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Palacios. If you can see Exhibit 16, I think you have a copy provided to you as well. Ms. Palacios, may a government official be reimbursed for expenses that were charged to other people's credit cards?
I don't. How would I know whose card?
Well, that's a great question, and that's something that we've been trying to find out as well. What we see in this exhibit is a list of the last four digits of 26 different credit cards, credit card numbers found among Governor Torres's receipts, travel records, and requests for reimbursement. Do you by any chance recognize any of them? I probably not. Okay, I don't. Yeah, all right. Does finance keep on file the credit card numbers belonging to the governor or to any public official?
No.
So there's nothing on file to be able to substantiate whether this is the governor's credit card. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Does finance verify that credit card numbers submitted with receipts for reimbursement actually belong to the individual requesting the reimbursement?
No.
Okay. So finance doesn't know for sure that any of the credit card numbers submitted by the governor for reimbursement actually belong to him. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. How does finance know that receipts that are submitted for reimbursement were actually for expenses that were paid by the official seeking reimbursement? How would you know that? How does finance know that?
We don't know whose credit card is it, but you're declaring it under the declaration on the bottom. You're certifying it as.
That would be the public official. So this goes back to what you said earlier, that finance relies on the attestations of the official seeking reimbursement, that the expenses are true and accurate and meet the public purpose test in accordance with the law and regulations. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. At this point, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Probst. Short recess, please. Welcome back. At this time, Representative Tina Sablan has the floor.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Representative Probst's line of questioning. So, Ms. Palacios, I'd just like to direct your attention to this part of finances regulations in the administrative code. So this is Title 70, Section 70-20.1, 110, unallowable or undocumented official representation and other expenditures. So last week at our last hearing, we discussed unallowable expenditures, and there were a number of examples that were unallowable. But this part of the regulations also refers to undocumented official representation and other expenditures. So if a government official fails to submit complete documentation as to, for example, names and positions of persons entertained, the nature and purpose of the expense and its direct relationship to the CNMI government, a description of matters discussed, or original receipts and supporting documents, then those types of expenditures, according to this part of the regulations, will not be reimbursed or paid by the CNMI government. Is that correct?
Yes.
If there is no sufficient documentation.
Yes.
Okay. And then in cases where payments for such undocumented expenses have been made from the CNMI government funds, such as travel or other advances, then the responsible party who incurred the expense will pay or reimburse the CNMI government for these expenditures. And then the regulations go on to say, if not paid in a timely manner, such costs may be recovered after notice through payroll deductions or other means authorized by law. So now I just wanted to ask you, Ms. Palacios, if you know, has the governor ever had to pay back any expenses for undocumented, or pay back the CNMI government for any undocumented expenses?
No.
Thank you. Okay, moving on now, if we could please pull up the Policy Council on the payment of utility bills. Or for housing, I should say. Yes. So, Ms. Palacios, under what policy does the Department of Finance authorize the payment of utility bills at the private residence of top elected officials?
On the absence of government housing, I think in lieu of the government housing, they were authorized to get their power paid by the government.
Okay, so let's go to the part of the law that pertains to government housing. That is Title I, Section 8221 to 8222. We have 8222 on the screen right now. So according to Section 8221, the purpose of this chapter is to provide government housing for the governor, lieutenant governor, president of the Senate, and the speaker of the House of Representatives for the CNMI. And then according to Section 8222, we could pull that, 8222. Housing for officials, authorization, the governor, lieutenant governor, president of the Senate, and the speaker of the House of Representatives of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands are authorized to obtain government houses for their private and residential purposes for the duration of their term in such office. And then it goes on to Section 8223, housing for officials, consultation and approval. The personnel officer shall consult with the offices of the officials named under 1 CMC sections 8221 and 8222 and obtain their approval as to which government houses serve their purposes. The personnel office shall then designate those houses for permanent assignment as the residences of the governor, lieutenant governor, president of the Senate, and the speaker of the House of Representatives. Okay. Ms. Palacios, have you seen this part of the code before? No? Okay. And to your knowledge, has any Speaker of the House or Senate President availed of government housing pursuant to this chapter? In all your years at finance?
No.
No. And so if not, have you only seen the governor avail of this benefit?
And the lieutenant governor.
Okay. So just the governor and lieutenant governor?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, has the personnel officer designated any government house for the current governor?
I'm not sure.
Is there any government house that's been designated for any official?
I don't remember.
Okay. But to your knowledge, the governor resides in his private home, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything in the law that you see that specifically states that the government shall pay for the utilities of any elected officials when they do not live in government houses and instead live in their own private residences?
I'm not aware of any law, and I'm not.
Okay. Okay. And so, but this has been the practice, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, if we could please go back to the finance regulations, Title 70, Section 70-20.1, 101B4. Aren't expenses, there we go, number 4, aren't expenses for private individuals' utilities specifically named as an unallowable personal or political expenditure in finances regulations? So that item number 4 reads, expenses for private individuals' utility, water, electricity, gas, telephone, and similar payments.
What is the question again?
So aren't expenses for private individuals' utilities specifically named in this list of unallowable personal or political expenditures in finances regulations?
It says private individual,
Mhm.
but the governor is an elected official. I'm not.
Mhm. But you don't know of any law that allows for his private utilities at his private residence to be paid by the government? It's not in the law.
It's not enough.
Okay. And you said this has been the practice, though, if the governor or lieutenant governor lives at their private residence, for the government to pay their utility bills. Do you know since which governor this has been the practice?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's about back. I'm not sure.
Okay, it's okay. If you're
Because they were not staying in a government housing.
Mhm.
And
so several administrations
several
ago.
administrations.
Okay. Thank you. And if we could please move on to our next and I think final exhibit. This would be exhibit number 17. Thank you. And ma'am, Ms. Palacios, you have in front of you a request for reimbursement dated March 14, 2019. You actually have the unredacted version. But I just wanted to have you confirm for the record that the account number that is listed on the receipt and on the CUC ledger is the same.
Yes.
It is the same. Okay. Just a very short recess, please, Madam Chair.
Short recess. Thank you. Welcome back, Representative Tina Sablon.
Thank you. So we now have, as Exhibit 16, a request for reimbursement dated March 14, 2019. And Exhibit number 17. And according to this memo, a request to reimburse Governor Ralph de Leon Guerrero Torres for his residential utilities was submitted to Finance Secretary David Atelig by the Acting Special Assistant to the Administration, Shirley Camacho Ogumuro. And according to the memo, the total reimbursement amount to Governor Torres was $6,630.90, covering the 5-month period from October 2018 to February 2019. Interestingly, colleagues, this reimbursement request covers the period right after Super Typhoon Yutu, when most homes on Saipan lacked utilities for weeks and even months. But in any case, Ms. Palacios, is this your signature on this memo? Sorry, could you speak into the mic?
Yes.
Yes. And what does your signature on this memo mean?
Certification of funds.
That funds were available?
Yes.
Yes. And what account was this expense actually charged to?
The SA account.
And what account is that?
616
Okay. So it's under the Office of the Governor, correct?
Yes.
For utilities.
Yes.
Okay. And this request, was the entire amount, $6,630.90 charged to that account?
Yes.
Okay. And this request memo to reimburse the governor for his utility expenses, these were expenses incurred at his private residence, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did the governor receive reimbursement for the entire amount? You just said that. But just for the record. He did receive reimbursement
Yes.
for the entire amount. Okay. And just briefly, for the record, so that we can understand, what are all the other numbers on this memo? So if you go to the top, there's PV 8478881. Somebody wrote in 677077. What do these numbers mean?
The one on the top, the PV number, is the payment voucher when accounts payable enter it.
Okay.
And then the bottom is a batch number.
Okay.
And then on the bottom.
I'm sorry, what is the
says-
batch number?
It's a group of vouchers that's entered. It's graded into one batch.
Okay.
So
So when payments are made, these numbers, you
If
log
vou-
them down.
yes.
Okay.
And then on the bottom, that's 6770770 OM.
Mm-hmm.
That's the obligating number.
Mm-hmm. Which means what?
It's an obligation. It's just like a PO or any other documents.
Okay. Thank you. And also attached to this reimbursement request, if we could go on to the next page, actually the page after that, the third page, is what appears to be a printout from CUC's ledger for Governor Torres's account. That page, yes. And the total balance owed includes late penalty fees. Is that correct, Ms. Palacios? Do you see that?
Yes.
Late penalties. Okay, so the governor was also reimbursed by the government for his late fees too.
Yes.
Okay, and then attached to the reimbursement request is a receipt from CUC. Do you see that?
Yes.
We could please pull that up, Council. Thank you. And the CUC account number is there. Well, it's redacted here, but it's the same account number as what's on the CUC ledger. And then the name on the receipt is Ralph de Leon Guerrero Torres. The receipt also indicates that $6,700 was paid in cash, and that change was given back in the amount of $69.10. In your experience, Ms. Palacios, have you ever seen any governor pay for his CUC bill with such a large sum of cash?
No.
No. Okay. And I'm just curious, does this strike you as unusual also.
We're just looking at the receipt as to how much you paid
Okay.
and how is the form of payment.
Okay. But it is clear from this receipt that $6,700 was paid in cash. Change was given back. And I mean, I just find it unusual, particularly since this governor apparently had access to so many credit cards. But I yield at this time, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Palacios.
Thank you. I'll recognize Representative Ed Probst and then Representative Richard Lizama after.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I could just, looking at these staggering amounts and just for the committee to look at this, when Representative Sablon was putting this together, this is a period of 5 months, October 2018 to February 2019, it's a reimbursement for residential utilities, water, sewer, CUC, water and power. So a period of 5 months, take in U2, no power for a couple of months, so you minus that. But if you do the breakdown of this, for $6,630.90 for each month out of the 5 months, that comes down to $1,326.18 for a utility bill. Now, I can tell you that if the average person got this on their utility bill, they'd probably pass out, me being one of them, because I think this is maybe 3 times higher than I've ever seen a utility bill. So it's quite unusual to consume that much power. I don't know what kind of a state that is, but we live in a 4-bedroom house and we average probably $400 to $500 a month on a bad month, if that's a high month. But we try to keep it down. But $1,326.18. I just want to say that's astounding. Perhaps solar panels should be recommended if we're going to be paying for the governor's power at his estate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Probst. I'll recognize Representative Lizama at this time.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And thank you again. My question is, you look at the average in a 5 months period, that's about over $1,000. And most of this happens during what you call campaign period, 2018, around September, October, November timeframe. Do you see any other bills that accumulated that amount in a monthly basis? This is about $1,000 a month. Do you see any other bills from the governor's expenses that accumulate up to $1,000 in 1 month period? Do you see?
I don't,
This is the only time. So this is the only time you've seen a total amount of 6,000. Like I said, it's 5 months period or 4 months period. There are over $1,000 a month, and so you have never seen any of this before. It's my question.
not never, but I don't remember.
Okay, you just don't remember.
No.
Thank you. I yield back now.
Thank you. Short recess, please. Thank you. We are back. I just have a few clarifying questions for the witness. Um, So if, as in this case, the governor has gotten reimbursed for his utility payments, is there any policy with the Department of Finance that they will be paying for multiple accounts if the governor has multiple accounts at CUC? Does finance pay for all of that?
No, I think the only one that we're paying is where he's staying. And that's the declared mentioned government housing.
And how would you know which particular residence is the one authorized to be paid for in utilities?
Usually the SAA would give us the information.
In writing, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then finance would also pay for the penalties, late fees, is that correct?
So far, yes.
Okay. So even if the governor had accumulated $115,000 in late fees, utility charges, any other penalties or administrative fees, Department of Finance would pay for that, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Should we enter? Short recess, please. And welcome back. At this time, we want to thank the witness and her counsel for your honesty and assistance in this process. We want to say Dankluna Sizusmasi to counsel for extending your professional courtesy to this committee. And we are ready to dismiss this witness at this time. Thank you. At this time, this committee is in recess until Thursday at 10 a.m.